All right, it's Monday, the first Monday I've been in this chair for quite a long time. Steve Murphy, of course, handled duties for a number of weeks and did a great job, and they're tough shoes to fill on my behalf, I must say. So for those of you who got used to Steve and his process and his way of doing the show on Mondays, I don't blame you. I'd be disappointed if it were me as well, but you're stuck with me. So that's we'll do our best to try and keep the momentum going that Steve built up for our councillors on the hot seat. Again, his knowledge of local politics, of all things Nova Scotia and Halifax, is really awesome. And I have a shadow of that ability, but I'll do my best as I self-deprecate on a Monday morning. Thanks to Vanessa Vandeness on the other side of the glass at the control board, doing a fine job as always. We're going to open the phone lines in about an hour's time. And I'm sure that some of the things that come up over the next hour will spill over into that call-in segment. We'll take your calls. But one of the things that I want to find out if any of you care about is sports salaries, which are in professional sports escalating out of control, spiraling absolutely out of control. The New York Mets opened their wallets yesterday, agreeing to sign Juan Soto to a $765 million a year, or a total, not a year, contract. That's a 15-year contract. A person familiar with the deal told the Associated Press that the deal hadn't been announced and was subject to the completion of a successful physical. Soto's deal easily surpassed Shohei Ohtani's $700 million agreement with the LA Dodgers from the previous winter. So can you imagine, for 15 years, $765 million, the Mets are locked into this guy who's 26 years old. Now, I was disappointed as a Yankee fan, but it's just unbelievable, these sports salaries, where they're going. We see them in the NHL, we see them in the NBA, we see them in the NFL, and of course Major League Baseball does not have a salary cap, it has a luxury tax. But it's just ridiculous. I don't know, are you turned off from professional sports entirely because of the wages that these players are making? Now the counter to that, of course, has been many decades ago, the owners had all the power and too much money and didn't share that money. And the argument could be made, if that revenue is out there for a result of the games, then why not spread it around equally? And obviously the Mets see this as an investment. They're obviously very smart and intelligent people who are running this team and think that they're going to recoup their costs and then some by signing the likes of Juan Soto, who is an amazing player. The Yankees are going to miss this guy, but I don't know. It just seems to me that these deals are spiraling out of control. So that's one of the questions that I will throw open to you is sports and professional sports in particular, of course, and salaries turned you off from the game. Also, this story, a majority of Canadians would be hesitant to buy U.S. goods in response to the proposed American tariff on products from Canada, according to a new survey. The findings of a recently released Nanos research survey suggest a tariff on Canadian exports into the United States would, for 2/3 of Canadians, negatively impact the likelihood they'd purchase U.S.-made goods. The question that I will ask you is, do you care where things are made when purchasing? Do you even consider it? Do you even look at it? Or is price king when all is said and done? Does price matter, or is that the only determining factor when you're purchasing something? Because the argument could be made, of course, that for things that are purchased in a lot of developing countries, there's child labor, there's environmental issues. But I would suggest that for most of you out there, that does not play into it, that for most of us, it's price, and that's all that matters. I guess it's easy to say when you're answering a survey that, yeah, you might consider that. But I would say that that's easy to do so. But what happens when it comes time to actually purchasing, if you have a $15 shirt or an $8 shirt and they're the same item, I would dare say most people would purchase the $8 shirt. That's just my belief. Also, another story I read in the Chronicle Herald, a business owner in the Valley was admonishing people to purchase local as opposed to purchasing online. And again, I throw the question out there, would you pay more, and in some cases significantly more, to support local businesses? Or when all is said and done, does the bottom line mean the most? And look, for most of you out there struggling, to make ends meet, as most of us are. Your budget is what it is. That would be a luxury to be able to say, well, I'm going to buy local and pay more. And in some cases, look, I'm sure that the local option is competitive. But I would say that the vast, vast, vast majority of the time, that's not the case. I know that we have Amazon deliveries every day or two right now on a regular basis to our door. Kelly does all the Christmas shopping. That's a good thing for our friends and family, because if it were me, you probably wouldn't get much. Not because I'm cheap, just because I wouldn't bother. I'm not thoughtful enough. That's true, though. Vanessa's laughing. But Kelly is very thoughtful and generous, and good on her for it. I'm glad that she is. She balances my idiocy out quite nicely. But we have Amazon coming regularly, and she saves a ton of money because of it. Now, you might say, well, she should be purchasing local. And look, I get it. There's an argument to be made for that. Local businesses do a lot for obviously the economy, hiring people, sponsoring charities, sports teams, all that stuff. Small businesses are the backbone of our economy, but we are continuing to abandon them because of price. And if this trend continues, what's that mean for the future? So purchasing habits is something else that I want to throw out there to see what you think about all of this. And if, in fact, U.S. tariffs on Canadian goods go to 25%, would that impact you not purchasing U.S.-made goods in Canada? I don't think there's a lot of U.S.-made goods sold here anyway, but perhaps. So, again, some things that you can get into when we open the phone lines in about an hour's time. Now it's time for Councillors on the Hot Seat. Joining me here in studio is Nancy Hartling, represents District 13. That's Prospect Road, St. Margarets. First time I've had a chance to meet Nancy. Nancy, thanks for coming in.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Excellent. Good stuff. And David Hendsbee, who was going to come in, but he's a little under the weather. District 2, Lawrencetown, the Lakes, Chezzetcook, Eastern Shore. David Hendsbee, we're missing you today, pal.
I'm sorry about that, but it's day 5 of this wicked cold, and I didn't want to pass it on to you, especially you're immunocompromised, just coming out of the hospital. So we're thinking about you, Todd.
Okay, I appreciate it. Now, you could have sent coffee instead. You don't have your Boston Bruins jacket on today, do you? Probably.
Not at the moment.
All right, so let's start with you.
But your Jets did okay yesterday. They almost won.
Yeah, they almost won. They're horrible, pathetic. It's sad. Nancy, let's start with you. New councillor, how's the gig so far?
Like I said, this is the best job in the world. I couldn't be more happy to be here.
Yeah?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. Well, that's a small sample size, though. We'll see you in 4 years.
Got that right. Make today another good day.
That's right. So highly contested. What was it like to run, and what motivated you to run?
I mean, many things. Certainly, the biggest one was that there was no incumbent. Obviously, Pam Lovelace, she was going for mayor.
Right,
she was the previous councillor in District 13. Mm-hmm. And then in my neck of the woods with Patty Cuddle, that section used to be part of District 11.
Yep.
So there was just a big opportunity there. And what can I say? I mean, when you see opportunities as good as the one in front of you, sometimes you just have to go after it with both hands.
Yeah. What are some of the things you hope to achieve in District 13? What are some of the hot stove items for you?
Yeah, so I mean, it depends on which neck of the woods you're at. If you're on the Prospect side, obviously the building in Halifax Exhibition Centre, the proposed 5,800 units that are going in behind there. There's all eyes are on that, and we want to make sure that development is right size for the environment that it's in. That the supports exist, that the roads make sense. There's many, many, many pieces to that. So really good management there. If you're on the St. Margaret's Bay side and the Tantallon side, obviously you're still very much feeling the burn of the wildfires. And we all want to make sure that egress exists. We want to make sure that our emergency response makes sense. Fires, floods, hurricanes. You cannot live in District 13 and have that not be top of mind for you. So we need to be sure that we're doing all we can to make sure that we have plans in place.
Okay, so if in fact this proposal, as it exists or when it's finalized, presented, and it doesn't have those things, egress and other things, you would not support it then?
Absolutely not. You mean you mean for Halifax Exhibition Centre?
Exactly.
Right. So, I mean, in Halifax Exhibition Centre, when we talk about egress, it's kind of different than the kind of egress that we talk about in Tantallon. So the 333 the Prospect Road, then Peggy's Cove Road. That's 63 kilometers end to end with not an exit in sight. So when we talk about egress, we're talking about something, wide range.
Yeah.
When we're talking about Tantallon, we're talking about how does a subset of a smaller neighborhood find their way out in the event that they cannot because of a fire, right? So the egress has a number of different, egress can be thought about in multiple ways.
Okay. I'm just received an email saying District 13 is now 14. It's District 14, is it?
Nope, District 13.
Okay.
Oh, I'm District 13. If you want to talk about District 14, then...
Okay. So Mark just sent me an email. So Mark, I guess you're wrong. Mark said District 13 is now 14. Pam would be District 14 if she remained not 13.
Sure. So he's not wrong, right? District 13, the new District 13 inherited the Prospect communities and it lost the Hammonds Plains community. So Hammonds Plains went to District 14.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was a redrawing of the boundaries.
Okay. I'm not sure why Mark sent that anyway. So with District 13, we got that right.
Yeah. I'm definitely the counselor. Oh, my business cards are all wrong.
Okay. Mark, I'm not sure why you sent that along, but we got it right. And Vanessa got it right because she's the one who wrote it on the script, so that's good. David Hendsbee, what's cooking? Certainly no. Is Nancy right? Best gig in town or what?
Oh, it is. That's why I love doing my job, and also announced that this will be my last term. I'm not going to reoffer in 2028, so I'm going to trying to go out with a bang and try and get a lot of things done before I go. Good.
And just had enough, or what's the reason for that?
Oh, I think after when I finish this term, it'd be 35 years. I'll be 68 years old. It'll be time for myself and family. So that would be it.
So not positioning yourself to run provincially because the timing would work out.
Well, yeah, I'll never say never.
Oh, there you go. I just do a little math. 4 years. Yep, that looks like it's going to align nicely. Anyway, the lots of water under the bridge till then, though, right, David? And lots of work to do, obviously.
Yes, a lot of things to do, yes.
Okay, what are some things cooking in your district that you'd like to pass along that are a priority or have your attention?
Well, right now, the Eastern Shore Lifestyle Center, the replacement of the Sheet Harbor Lines facility, funding was announced 5 years ago. We're hoping its construction start maybe this year. It's been a long time planning. We had some site location issues, but hopefully that's been all resolved now. We're hoping to get that construction underway and completed before the term is finished, as well as now the Eastern Shore District High School and the Gatesbrook Junior High School becoming vacant in the new year because the new school constructed in East Chezzetcook. We need to look at what's the future use of those buildings. I'd love to see a community hub facility for Muscatava Harbor. The French school in Porter's Lake looking at doing a new renovation, new construction, so they may be using the Gatesbrook Junior High School as a temporary residence for a while the new school's being built. So those are some of the bigger issues, as well as to keep advocating with the province about the paving of the highway down Number 7 Highway through the Eastern Shore, as well as the 207, the part where we inherited from the province. We need to get that finished from Robinson Road to Mineville Road and get that widened and paved and fixed. So those are some of the major projects, but there's also the day-to-day issues. We have a lot of community groups and organizations that have a tax relief benefit program. That item's come to council very soon on the agenda, and that has a major impact on a lot of our community organizations along the whole municipality.
Okay, fair enough. Give us a call, by the way, if you'd like to chat with the councillors. That's what this is about. It's about you interacting with the councillors. 902-405-6000. If you've got a question for David Hendsbee or Nancy Hartling or both, 902-405-6000. That's the way to do it. Again, 902-405-6000. All right, housing and encampments. This is something that I want to quickly get both of your takes on. A recent motion before HRM Council calling for 9 potential designated encampment sites to be rescinded was defeated in a close vote. The motion was brought forward by Andy Fillmore, of course, sought to rescind the list, which includes Point Pleasant Park as a potential site for a homeless encampment. David, how did you vote on this?
I voted against the motion. I felt that until the province has adequate capacity to shelter everybody, we need to prepare ourselves for any new encampment encroachments. I think that it's idealistic to try to close them, but we had to be realistic and said until we have adequate capacity, we need to have these things designated, because if we don't, we didn't want them to grow organically and go anywhere. We want to have at least some limited control of where they could go.
Okay, Nancy, how about you? What was your take on this?
I voted for. I voted with the mayor. I think that what it came down to was him. I think that ultimately we need to acknowledge that encampments, they are not housing. And so I think that what we need to be focusing on is a housing first initiative, a housing first strategy. There is, to David Hendsbee's point, do we have a bed? Do we have a shelter? Do we have a home for every single homeless person in the municipality right now? The answer is no. But the issue remains is that, are encampments the solution to homelessness? I'm not sure that the answer is yes. Mm-hmm. What was the dialogue in council was really, is there significant value to maintaining that list? That list was not ordered. I know that some in the media kind of pointed to the idea that if we had this list, that it would give us a better strategy in the event that we needed to open a new one. The CAO was quick to respond and by saying no, right? There's nothing fast or speedy about spinning up an encampment site. That would have to go back to council anyway. I think what it really came down to is while we are not maybe looking at a future where no other encampment will ever exist in the future, the way that the motion existed in July 9th is not the same as the landscape today.
Okay.
I think, yeah.
Okay, fair enough. 902-405-6000. Give us a call, folks, if you'd like to jump in on this and chat with one of the councillors. David Hendsbee, Nancy Hartling here in studio, 902-405-6000. We'll get to your calls when we come back. All right, our councillors on the hot seat segment. Nancy Hartling here in studio, District 13. David Hendsbee's on the line as well, District 2. We've got some room for you as well if you'd like to chat with one of the councillors or both. 902-405-6000. Rick's giving us a call. Hello, Rick.
How you doing?
Doing well.
Hey, David, I have a question for you. That little park that was just built there, Muscova Harbour in the river, does that come out of the park or recreation fund, or does that come out of on our taxes, and what did that cost us?
I don't have the top dollar on the top of my head right now, but I'll report that in my newsletter coming up in the new year. Get the figures for you. But it came from the capital funds, partially from the district, also funds from the local area rate. Muscova Harbour has a half-cent area rate. $10,000 that came from that fund, and the rest of it, $150,000, came from the general budget overall.
Yeah, because it doesn't seem like that many people's going to be using what you put in there. It's a kayak ramp or canoe ramp, I guess.
Yeah, it's river access.
I live right there by the river, and I don't see too many people kayaking down through there.
Well, the river access point is one of the proposals we had in the community master plan for the area. That park is right beside the Peace Park by the rink of Muscova Harbour, so it gives us access to the river. So I anticipate that you probably see a lot of the white water kayakers probably going to be using it now since they have an area to launch there now. I know the representative of the kayak canoe Nova Scotia was very pleased to see that access park put in. And so I'm pretty sure we'll probably see that as the water, depending on the water levels. I wouldn't be surprised. You might see some tubers going up and down the river now, depending on the water level.
All right. We just we're trying to get shared trails down there. And, us four-wheelers and side-by-sides, we pay a lot of taxes when we buy these bikes and that kind of stuff, right? We have no trails in the harbor. Yes,
the rails trails corridor, that's a provincial matter. They give the letter of authority to the local groups that right now make a solely active transportation only. But I wouldn't mind to see if we could revisit that, even just for the winter time when the rail beds are frozen. Why not have access to ATVs and snowmobiles during the winter times? I think that'd be a fair thing to do. That way that the snowmobilers and the ATVers can come into the village core to get the services they need, be it gasoline, go groceries, or to the local food establishment, anything like that. So, but that's something we need to talk to with the Muscova Harbour Trail Association to see if they're open to it. But I'm pretty sure at the present time they're not.
Yes, I know. But, we got to do something about that. So,
yep.
All right. Thank you, David.
Okay. Thanks, Rick. Appreciate the call. 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. If you'd like to chat with one of the councillors, we've got open lines for you. Steve's giving us a call. Hello, Steve.
Hey, I'm just going to ask my question, then I'll I'll listen for the answer. I'm just wondering why the Dartmouth Cove got so much pushback, and yet Irving Shipyards right now is dumping 1.5 million tons of rock in to fill the harbor there. Just actually wondering what the difference is. Why does Irving get to do it and the smaller company doesn't? Thanks.
Okay. Nancy, you want to try that first?
I wish I had good answers for you.
Yeah.
That is a great question. I think that we should all be thinking about that. Certainly, if you know anything about me, certainly coastal protection is a very, very big deal in District 13. Obviously, we share a shared coastline from Terrence Bay all the way to Hubbard's. I really, really look forward to understanding what coastal protection will look like for the municipality in the upcoming months and years, especially given where we are right now with the provincial
I
government.
was going to ask you that. Were you disappointed in the province bailing on coastal protection?
I'm choosing to look at it as an opportunity.
Oh, yeah. That's very diplomatic.
I mean, at the end of the day, you know, I can only affect the corner of the universe that I'm in, and I think it is smart to acknowledge that any coastal protection should be comprehensive. It should, you know, we need to be thinking about more than just our own little piece of coastline. Having said that, you know, I think that what we need to do is look at this as an opportunity to come up with some of the best and most comprehensive coastal protection and move forward thinking about what can we do to be a shining light.
Well, I guess some might say that by the province backing away from it, it has empowered the municipality in a way. Do you agree with that?
Exactly. I mean, as I understand it, and don't quote me on this, but as I understand it, I think sometime in the next 3-6 months, next year or so, the province will be coming forward with kind of a blueprint on what coastal protection could look like at the municipal level. What I am choosing to think of it as is the bare bones, and then it's up to us to put meat on those bones. Having said that, I haven't seen it yet.
Okay.
Right. But the truth of the matter is that there's all kinds that we can and should be doing, and I really, really look forward to doing that.
Okay, David, you want to chime in on this?
Yes, Halifax Harbour has got to be recognized as a working harbour. It's not just recreational residential. We have a lot of industry and commercial activities on the harbour. Irving Shipyards have a spot over there on their side of the harbour infilling to try to make their yards a little more productive, have more land capacity and stuff. The Dartmouth Cove, you know, that's another situation where we're trying to infill the periodic slates that are coming up from the hospital construction over there on the peninsula. That we need spots to deposit stuff. You need to put it in salt water. And the Dartmouth Cove project was one of those ideal locations. But the problem is, goes through a residential neighborhood to get to it is the big concern there. We've seen what King's Wharf had done with the old Dartmouth shipyards, infilled that and now making a beautiful residential area. This is an opportunity where the Dartmouth Cove could also be partially infilled, and there could be future lands for future use, be it residential, could be recreational parkland, but right now it needs to be used as a depository for periodic slates. So also the Halifax Port Authority are looking at infilling a part of their piers down the south end to maximize their capacity on the waterfront for serving large ships. So our harbour is a working harbour. We need to realize that, and we need to look at these opportunities where there's water lots to infill to make better capacity.
That's a great point. Thank you for that.
Okay, so David, I guess your takeaway is that all infilling is not equal based on what part of the we're talking about here. Is that correct?
It depends on the size of the water lot you have in your particular area. Yes, so those are pre-Confederation water lots that were done, like before 1867. There are rights that go with those type of water lots. So therefore, the infilling is part of that process.
Nancy, you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, what can I say today? Do I know everything that there is to know? No, but I think that it does obviously make sense to understand that there should be a difference in the way that we talk about working harbors and the way that we talk about, you know, residential, you know, folks living on or around a coastline, and the way that we think and build around that.
Okay, fair enough. 902-405-6000. Look, folks, we got lots of open lines for you. If you'd like to talk with one of the councillors, whether it be about encampments or infilling or whatever it might be, 902-405-6000. That's the way to get in on the fun. Give us a buzz. Open lines for you, 902-405-6000. Councillors on the Hot Seat continues when we come back.
Thanks.
All right, talking municipal politics with our councillors on the hot seat. David Hendsbee, District 2 on the phone, and Nancy Hartling, District 13 here in studio. If you've got a question for either or both of these councillors, give us a call, 902-405-6000. Wayne's done just that. Hello, Wayne.
Good day, sir. How are you?
Doing well, you?
Down in the garage again, getting ready to have a stogie.
Nice. Nice. Enjoy.
So my thing for the councillor is, on Dunbrack, this building that's taken quite a while to build. Do you remember at the airport there was a hotel they tried to build there, and it got ate out that much by weather and mold and everything that they had to tear the building down and then build another one?
Which councillor do you want to address this?
That was the old Kenny's Hotel. Yes, I remember that project.
Yeah, well, I'm willing to bet it's the same thing with this building. This building has been open to the environment so long now. I'd pity the people that, when it does get finished, that moves into it, because they're going to be dealing with a lot of physical health problems with their lungs and that. Because I'm willing to bet that building now must be full of mold.
Are you talking about the massive one that's that huge building on the, I can't remember the corner of what that street goes crossing Dunbrack, across from the lake, right?
Yes, where you go into the park there. Now, in 2002, the hole was dug to build the building.
Yeah.
I went overseas, and when I came back, I figured the building would be almost completed.
Yeah, the one thing one thing I will say, Wayne, you're talking about mold, is that building's actually, I believe, all concrete. I think there's no wood structure on it to this point. I could be wrong,
but water goes where it's least resistance, and it'll grow mold wherever it can get it in there.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so David, you have anything on this?
There was a what?
I'm sorry. So what's your question?
So the question is, if the people of Spryfield are listening to my conversation, I think they should look at the dangerous and unsightly bylaw. And I think they should form a team together and get a legal team together and go after the city for their anguish and everything, waiting for this building to complete it. It's been an eyesore to Spryfield now for 22 years.
Yeah.
It's disgraceful.
Okay.
And how he's getting away with letting this run on, and the councillors letting it go on, it's bad for the people that live there. I lived out in Spryfield on the Herring Cove Road, 956 Herring Cove Road in 2002, and then I moved on behind St. Michael's, and then I came out to Timberley. Mm-hmm. And I've been watching that building all this time, and it's disgraceful.
All right, Nancy,
so
you want to weigh in this?
Yeah, I don't have anything to add to this conversation. If I'm being honest with you, I don't know the timeline of the building or the status of it.
I think it's time for the councillors to start investigating it and get on with it and get this guy to either finish this building or tear it down.
David, what's your take on this?
To the city.
David, what's your take on this?
I'm not familiar with the development specifically. I'm perhaps going to take a drive over and have a look myself, because it might have been.
Well, you see, the thing is, the problem is, I've been listening to Rick Howe. In fact, I came here in 1979. I've been listening to Rick Howe forever. I've been listening to Todd ever since he's got this show. And this conversation keeps coming up, and the councillors keep passing the buck. Oh, I'll investigate it, or I'll look at it, but we got nothing done about it.
Well, perhaps you should be asking the local councillor for the area, because the issue is that may have been approved by the local community council in that area, which is not. I'm on the Harbour East, I'm on the other side of Halifax Harbour. That's been in Spryfield. That'd be done probably the Northwest Community Council. So perhaps the Northwest Community Council could look at the history of that file, when it was approved, and what the construction and progress has been. Perhaps our construction inspectors could go on site and see what kind of progress is there, or if there's any environmental issues that you're concerned about, if they're present or not.
Okay, David, this issue, hang on a sec, Wayne. This issue is look, there's probably other, not perhaps to this degree, but there are probably other similar projects which have been stalled in the municipality, David. We know that there are properties that along Roby here that have been controversial that developers own that aren't building them and aren't working on them. So this file at large could be addressed on a larger scale, could it not, David?
It possibly could. You're probably talking about the Bloomfield school.
Yeah,
site.
the school, yeah.
And that's an issue there. We're talking, should they demolish a part of that building or the annex and stuff? Those are discussions still to be had by the property owner. In the meantime, he's trying to keep it protected from being vandalized. But the other projects is progress of construction in progress. The question is they do have a permit time limit on a construction permit, to get construction underway. But once it's underway, there's no real timeline because it all depends on the availability of funding and finances and access to resources and be it materials and supplies or labor. So we're not sure why the developer there may be having delays.
Well, you can't have over 20 years worth of delays. I mean, there's something wrong there.
Yeah.
It's either on the council side or it's on his side. It's one or the other. You can't have a building sitting there for 20 years and the people coming home from work every day having to look at this eyesore every day.
Yeah, you make a good point, Wayne, in that if I'm renovating a house or whatever and I have a big pile of garbage out in my yard for any length of time, the municipality is going to come by and there's going to be bylaws that are going to require me to clean that up. So why could a developer have, as you pointed out, this eyesore with no end in sight? And because it is an eyesore, it's massive. So that's a valid point I think you're making.
I think so too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, gentlemen and ladies, thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thanks so much. 902-405-6000. Jeff, hello.
Good morning. How are you?
Doing well, you?
Good, thank you. I just want to say thank you to the councillors for running and representing their communities. My question is, and neither one of you may know about this, but there's some road construction up on Windsor Street, Windsor, Strawberry Hill, Hood Street. It's been ongoing for, I'd say, a couple months now. And recently they've cut out large sections of it and ground it down to resurface it, I'm imagining. But where they made the cuts, usually it's a bit of a angle, like a 45, or it's a little less abrupt of a cut. But these are just straight cuts down. And in some places, we're talking like a 3-inch difference in road height. And, cars are having to almost come to a complete stop to not damage their vehicle and so on. Just wondering, are the asphalt plants still open? Is this going to get finished for next spring?
I believe the asphalt plants are still open. They haven't. It's usually they close when the frost gets in the ground. So there's still construction going on. They're probably looking at the subsidence, the settling of whatever the water lines or sewer lines putting in, and they should be topping them up if they get to a point of having, like you said, a depression of 2 or 3 inches is quite a stop for cars to try to get over. So the local construction crew should be looking at that, and I'll make a note to have our road folks to have a little visit over there and see if they're keeping the reasonable standard.
It just looks like they're doing some resurfacing. I don't think there's any major infrastructure repaired or replaced, but I'm literally here right now and trying to turn onto Strawberry Hill, and the cars are just one after another just coming almost to a complete stop so they don't damage their vehicles. And I don't blame them. I mean, it's a fairly significant, but in past experience, I've noticed when they've made those cuts, it's sort of like on an angle, so it's less impact on the vehicle's tires and wheels when they come in contact with it. But if you go and look, these are just straight 45-degree angle, and in some places, like say 2-3 inches in height difference. So it could potentially damage some vehicles' wheels or blow out a tire if somebody were to hit it at a regular rate of speed. There are some signs and stuff put up, but with all the wind and everything, and people, get knocked over and so on. But anyway, that was just a concern of mine. Just wondering if it was slated to be finished in the near future or not, because it's been going on for quite a while now.
I'm sure they'll be targeting to finish it because I hate to leave something like that in the wintertime and a snow plow hitting that edge. It wouldn't be very nice.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, it would certainly get the guys' attention, that's for sure. All right, thanks very much for your time. Appreciate it, guys.
Thanks for the call. Take care. 902-405-6000. Hello, Gloria.
Hi, how are you?
Doing well, you?
Morning, councillors. My question is for David. I want to ask Nancy because she's only new on the show here. David, don't you think it's time that council put a freeze on salaries for council?
Gloria, I've been saying that.
Pardon?
I've been saying that for years. It should be frozen for the term. The pay should be frozen for the term, and at the end of that term, the old council will set the rate for the new council, and the election will be set on that new rate. So I agree with you. The salary should be frozen.
I remember you saying that, David, but what I'm saying is I don't care what term it is. When you're making $103,000 as a councillor and you look around you and you see what's going on, the homeless, people in tents, people not being able to afford to eat, and here's council, and this foolish talk is we can't refuse it, we have to accept it. It's the council's policy. You can do with whatever you want with it. Kathy Diggle-Gammon reduced it last year from 8 to 4. So, yeah. David, before you leave, make sure you get that changed. Don't only freeze it for the term, freeze it until economic conditions, get better.
Yeah, well, if we did that when I was part of the John Hand government, we froze the MLA salary until the province.
Of course you did.
We did that until government could be in a surplus position. They're running deficits. Why should they be giving pay increases to the politicians?
If you look at some of the salaries, being paid in HRM, you shake your head. I looked at them last night. I shook my head. I couldn't believe it. But anyway, David, get over that cold. And thank you, Todd. And hello, Nancy. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And you do have the best job in the world, and it will stay that way as long as you listen to people, answer your emails and phone calls.
You got that right.
You'll keep enjoying it.
You got that
Thanks,
right.
Gloria.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
All right, take care. 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us for councillors on the hot seat. We've got David Hendsbee, Nancy Hartling. Got some room for you as well as some open lines. 902-405-6000. We'll be back. All right, some time left to the top of the hour for you. If you'd like to chat with one of the councillors or both, David Hendsbee, Nancy Hartling, 902-405-6000. And to the salaries, and we were just chatting, Nancy and I, off air here during the break, $103,000. Look, we get it that some people listening right now are on fixed incomes and making much, much less than that. But the reality is that if you want to attract good talent and good people, you have to have a good wage scale, Nancy, right? I mean, that's the bottom line, is it not?
Absolutely. I mean, I know that, for a number of councillors who are now elected, then candidates, we all had to concede that there would be a pay cut associated with taking this job. And we're taking this job because we want it, not ever because there's big financial gains for us. Yeah. We were just talking before, like $100,000 a year 10 years ago, even 7-8 years ago. That was a sizable amount of money. I think we can all agree that the landscape has changed a little bit when it comes to that.
Yeah. Inflation is, and again, in fairness, we know some of you are making $35,000-$40,000 a year out there, and we empathize.
Sure.
But the reality is that $100,000 ain't what it used to be.
No, and $40,000 isn't what it used to be either, right? Like it is what it is. Yeah.
Okay, 902-405-6000. James, hello.
Hey, thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
I just have two quick questions for Nancy, and please correct me if I'm wrong on either of these. I believe Westwood Hills, where the Tantalon wildfires started, there is still no emergency exit. I'm just wondering if there's any reason why or an update on that. And the second one would be, I believe last year there was a proposed or approved development between Highland Park and Halliburton, and I haven't heard any sort of update on that. So I'm just curious if there's any update on it, and appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, so in terms of egress, I think that... what can I say? Is it there yet? No. I know that there are some motions within council right now to get that moving along. It's certainly a file that I've been paying attention to. I think the next time that we are looking to review it is in February. To to the folks of Westwood, please know that that is like my highest priority. Unfortunately, I can't make things go faster than the pace of things, and there are some big challenges there. But I think what has also happened as a consequence of the wildfires in Westwood is that it's really brought to light that there are a number of communities right up and down the 333, like right across District 13, and truthfully right across HRM, where we need to acknowledge that we have not done a good job in terms of addressing egress. And so there's kind of two prongs to the conversation: is what are we doing for Westwood today, and then what are we also doing for all of District 13 and all of HRM in terms of making sure that we have an emergency response that makes sense vis-a-vis the communities that they're in.
Okay, 902-405-6000. Tim, hello.
Hey, guys. I had mentioned this before, and I didn't get to answer that. So I'll mention it again. Just noise bylaw for cars and motorcycles. Why wouldn't you be able, you said it was too expensive and inefficient before, but why wouldn't you be able to get something like that will be complaint-driven, and all you have to do is get a license plate or an address and get somebody to go and find out if the vehicle is making too much noise.
David?
Well, that's something we've been asking the province to give us a little authority to have the noise bylaw to enforce the issues of these non-compliant off-manufacturing exhaust pipes, whatever the case may be, on motorcycles or sports cars. But I don't think we have the jurisdiction yet to enforce that yet. We've been asking for it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot. 902-405-6000. And also, David, I would add that enforcement's a good thing, but those are resources that do we want to send police to address that and deal with that? I'm not saying that it's not worthy of that, but is that a priority for already strapped police forces? What are your thoughts?
Well, that's a good point. The other issue may be when you have these motorcycle parades and stuff like that, you got the rolling thunder coming through and stuff. Yeah. It might be time to have enforcement and say, okay, your bike is not within design parameters for noise, so you need to get it fixed or whatever. But yeah, I agree. There needs to be a priority set aside. The question is, the quiet enjoyment of neighborhoods. Are they getting constantly disturbed, or is it just a one of or two of? It all depends, the location, I guess you could say. Because I know that in south end of Halifax, from town to town, you got a parade of bikes going down Spring Garden Road down to Point Pleasant Park for their joyrides and stuff, and sometimes the sports cars. I got sports cars running up and down some of the highways here in the Eastern Shore that make a lot of noise and leave a lot of rubber on the road and stuff. But the problem, though, is can a police officer be on site when it occurs to catch them in the act?
Fair enough. Here's an email question for you, David. Says this from Brad. Says, I've been playing hockey down at the Eastern Shore rink since I was in minor hockey. The first time I played in that rink, I would have been 8 years old. Today I'm 36. In the last 28 years, I must say there's been next to zero upgrades to that rink. The odd thing has been done. I play in a men's league down there, and playing, it's nice to have a shower. The water is either scalding hot, freezing cold, but a recent barely running. With the Eastern Shore paying property tax, when will we actually see some sort of proper upgrade to the rink, or better yet, a new rink?
Well, I'd love to have a second ice pad built there for better ice capacity, but I know the rink has gone through a lot of renovations and retrofits. We're putting a new heat plant in there now. We just got rid of the wood doctor there. We put an electric Zamboni in there. We just replaced the boards, the new benches there 2 years ago. They put in new lighting a few years ago and new ceiling insulation. So there's been a lot of upgrades to the arena over the years. But it is one of the oldest rinks in the municipality, and I'd love to see it get a twin pad on it because there's that much demand for ice on the Eastern Shore, and we got to travel long distances to go find the ice time. We got to go to Glasgow, to Truro, to Stewiacke, to Cole Harbour, to Dartmouth. It's ridiculous why we had to travel so far for an ice pad.
Okay, fair enough. I want to. I got one more little time for this last question. It's an email question from Liz. It's for Nancy. It says, I live in Tantallon. Don't drive. There is only an express bus to go into the city, which leaves early in the morning, goes directly to Scotia Square without stopping anywhere else. This district has many seniors who have no transportation. We have bay rides. We need 48 hours notice to book, and costs a lot to go into Halifax. Is there any hope of any public transportation out in this area. That from Liz.
Yeah, so all I can say is amen. I 100% agree with you. That express bus is nowhere near good enough. I made no secret when I was campaigning that we need way more and better transit towards Tantallon. The one express bus is nowhere near enough, and it's not good enough. There is no reason, in my view, that we cannot push for more and better transit, particularly where there's already a park and ride there. There's a number of pieces there, right? Like, you need to think about how, for example, the number of healthcare workers that work out there that now all of a sudden don't have places to park in the city. Having an express bus with like one stop back, it doesn't make sense. The number of students who are no longer living in town. And again, their schedule does not make sense vis-a-vis the schedule that exists. And then also just people who are trying to get to different places of work, right? Like, if we are going to make transit useful for people, we need to do better in terms of timing, service, delivery. Mm-hmm. I absolutely agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, fair enough. Nancy, thanks for coming in. We appreciate it. Great meeting you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, David Hendsbee, great as always. Thank you, sir.
No problem. Go Bruins.
There you go. Take care. David Hendsbee, Nancy Hartling, that's Councillors on the Hot Seat. Your calls, 902-405-6000, an open hour when we come back. All right, it's time for you. Taking your calls. The way to reach us is 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. What would you like to talk about on this Monday? 902-405-6000. Open lines for you folks. Get in on the fun. Something that perhaps you could talk about. I got a few things here. I'll kind of prime the pump with you that caught my attention. But one of the things was a conversation that we just had with the councillors, and that was Gloria, I believe, raised the issue of freezing councillors' wages, which are now $103,000. Which, look, I know, again, for many of you out there listening right now, you're on fixed incomes and you're making much less than that, and you're trying to make ends meet, and that seems like a huge amount of money. And I'm not saying that it's not decent money, but it's not what it was 10 years ago or even 5 years ago. It really is not. And look, if you want to motivate people to get into politics at any level, you have to, I think, provide incentive to do so, financial incentive. Many people are working in the private sector who make good money, good careers, and you're asking them in many cases to leave that. And there's risks at play when you run municipally or provincially or federally. Of course, it's no guarantee you're going to get reelected. And if somebody's working in the private sector and they've got their feet entrenched in a business, in a company, and they've got benefits and tenure and all that stuff, again, I don't think it's unreasonable to offer people a good competitive salary. Maybe, though, perhaps you don't agree. Maybe you think too many politicians are in it for a career and for the money. And there are career politicians. Oh, we can look to Ottawa. There have been people in Ottawa forever. Forever. How long has Dominic LeBlanc been a member of Parliament? I have no idea, but it's been a very, very long time. Pierre Poilievre. He goes way back to the Harper years. And we're talking a long time ago now. So, look, for some people, and provincially here, the same thing. There have been people who've been MLAs for seemingly ever. So do you have an issue with politicians' pay? Do you think that politicians are overpaid, pensions and all of that? Or do you think that, look, again, what I just said, you need to you need to pay people the right amount of money or a sufficient amount of money to motivate and entice them to run? Because it's not an easy gig. It is not. 902-405-6000. Speaking of pay, professional sports. Are you turned off because of pay? The reason I bring this up is, and again, I know many of you aren't sports fans out there, but many of you are. And even if you're not a sports fan, this is something that might interest you. Juan Soto, who played for the Yankees last year, is a great player. 26 years old, I believe. Fantastic, incredible player. But is he worth $765 million over 15 years? Because the New York Mets think that he is and are paying him that amount of money. The Blue Jays were supposedly in the running for this. But as these salaries continue to spiral out of sight, the question is, do you get turned off from professional sports because of the amount of money people are making? You look at hockey, you get players like Austin Matthews making over $10 million a year. And I could go on and on with people in those categories. So what are your thoughts on that? The professional sports salaries, has it turned you off at all? 902-405-6000. Here's another thing that you can get in on, perhaps. There's been a lot of talk about Trump's threatening to impose tariffs on day one after his inauguration on Mexico and Canada, 25% tariff. He says they're needed because Canada and Mexico have been laggards when it comes to certain issues, including border security. And he says, as a result, and until they get their act together, we get our act together, he will impose 25% tariff. Now, I read a story this morning on the CTV website. A majority of Canadians would be hesitant to buy U.S. goods in response to the proposed American tariff on products from Canada, according to a new survey. The findings of a recently released Nanos research survey suggested tariff on Canadian exports into the U.S. would, for 2/3 of Canadians, negatively impact the likelihood they'd purchase U.S.-made goods. I'm not convinced. I don't believe that. I really don't. Look, I'm not suggesting that that's not the response that they got when conducting the survey, but I think there's a big difference between how somebody says how somebody responds to a survey question and somebody's actual purchasing habits. And I think that for the most part, people out there don't consider where something is made. I really don't think that. Perhaps the odd person, when they're out purchasing things, look at where something's made, and that influences what they purchase. I would say most of you don't. I think for most of you, it's the bottom line, period. How much is something, and you'll take the cheaper product almost every time. Whether it be from Taiwan or China or wherever it might be, including the United States and including Canada. Now, it's nice to say that people would pay more to purchase locally or to purchase something made here in Canada, domestically. But I don't think that most people have the luxury of doing that anymore. I think for the most part, people are so strapped with their budgets that they're going to buy the cheapest product. I really believe that. And we'll see this in the United States because Trump is going to inevitably ask people to pay more money for products in hopes that will inspire people to shop American and buy American and put America first. American manufacturing. And look, I get it that it's good for manufacturing to have a robust manufacturing industry in your country. At one point, we had that in Canada. And the middle class was strong and booming because of it. But we've moved away from that. And we've had international trade agreements now, and we've become reliant on cheap products from places like China. And I'm not convinced that most of you out there would look at something and say, oh, it's made in the United States, I'm not purchasing it. Or it's made in China, I'm not purchasing it because of geopolitics or labor practices or environmental standards or whatever it is. I think when all is said and done, price is king. So when you're purchasing something, do you consider or care about where it's made? And I would add to that, would you pay more to buy local? Because business owners, and saw a story in the Herald today, are asking people to do just that, to get away from online shopping and to buy local. Do you think that the ship has sailed when it comes to that? The horse is out of the barn, whatever metaphor or analogy you want to use. Is the online shopping craze here to stay and go do nothing but proliferate? I would say that's the case for the reasons I mentioned. If you're shopping for Christmas and your budget allows you to buy so much online and it exceeds what you could purchase locally, I think that would be the way that most of you would go. So what are your shopping habits? And do you care? Do you care if where it's made? 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us. Again, 902-405-6000. 6,000. Let's kick it off with Mike. Hello, Mike.
Todd, how are you?
Doing well, you?
Welcome back.
Thank you, sir.
And like I told Vanessa, that I'm a big fan of this Christmas Daddy show that was on CTV on Saturday.
Yep.
I've been a very very, very, very big fan of that. And too bad, I know Steve Murphy did the Monday Murphy, too bad he wasn't there, but I hope you heard this. And, good to have you back. And like I told Vanessa, we got hit with snowstorm here. I'm in Manitoba. We got hit with snowstorm here over the weekend. Man, we got a lot of snow here. A lot of snow. But I just want to call and say I'm going to hurry up, make this quick, hoping I'm talking too fast, make it real quick. I'd seen that Christmas Daddy show live, and I lived in Halifax, at Rebecca Cohen Auditorium, where Dave Wright did it. And I've been saying I hope to get back every year to see it, so maybe one day I will get back to see the show live. But welcome back, man. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Take care. Thanks for that. 902-405-6000. Roman, hello.
Good morning, Todd. Glad to speak with you again.
Great.
I was calling about the Juan, not necessarily Juan Soto, but I guess if you want to, you could throw in Taylor Swift into that. Like she made like $2 billion.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's
a good point.
Like I'm baffled actually by Taylor Swift that all these people I know people personally that taking their 5-year-old daughter, whatever, to see Taylor Swift, paying thousands and thousands of dollars. So, I mean, good for her. I've gone to a pile of concerts over the years, paid a bunch of money. My parents never would have taken me to see anybody like that. But if people want to spend the money, so be it. It's, you shake your head at Juan Soto, and every quarterback that comes, the next guy gets more. So I think, that's the way it is. And I think if people didn't want to spend the money, then that's their business. But, like I say, if you want to spend $5,000 to go see Taylor Swift, that's your business. And I really have no problem with people making that money if they can, and people spending it if they can afford it. So no problem with that at all.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you, Roman. Appreciate the call, pal.
Welcome.
All right,
Bye.
Take care. All right, that's a good point, right? He made Taylor Swift. Yeah, she wrapped up this hair store. I think it was over $2 billion in gross that it made. Of course, there were expenses associated with that, but just massive cost people spent on Taylor Swift. Unbelievable. So I would extend that. Entertainment in general, is the cost of entertainment ridiculous now? Has it turned you off from professional sports or going to shows and concerts or whatever it might be entertainment related with these costs, or your shopping habits, or whatever else you want to get into? 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us. We'll continue with your calls when we come back. All right, taking your calls, 902-405-6000. Mike, hello.
Hi, how's it going?
Well, you. Hello, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was calling to say about the online shopping.
Yeah.
And shopping local. It's very hard to shop local when all the local stores are blocked off from parking with bike lanes and construction, and it's been a very hard time for local businesses, especially in HRM.
That's a good point.
With all this. So where's the support from the city council for the local businesses, let alone the, less than 0.3% of people who cycle? It's a big disparity, and it has a big effect on their bottom line.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. I would say that would be a concern of mine if I had a business and I'd bike lanes this time of year, especially to deal with parking reduced greatly. And you're absolutely, I think you make a valid point. I truly do. And I'm sure that many business owners out there right now are agreeing with this.
And one other thing I wanted to bring up was last week you had the head of the Nova Scotia Teachers Union on.
Yep.
But one of the things they talk about is all the teachers who leave the profession within the first 3 to 4 years of graduation.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody ever talks about the fact that the way the union rules are set up, recently retired teachers get first crack at long-term sub-positions. And the average graduate takes 6 to 9 years to qualify to get a permanent job in Nova Scotia.
Yeah, it's a good point.
And that's based on the union rules, not the province. That's internal to the union. So they're sacrificing their young, new teachers to allow those who retire to double dip. And maybe that is something they need to look at to keep more of the trained teachers from our Nova Scotia universities in Nova Scotia. Because I know a lot of people that have left. I myself graduated and went to a different profession in a different area because I couldn't wait 10 years like some of my graduating colleagues did to get a permanent job.
Yeah, that's a good point. Valid point, Mike. Thanks for the call.
Thank you.
All right, take care. 902-405-6000. Blair, hello.
Hi.
Hi there.
I'm calling about shopping habits, but first I want to do a shout out for bus drivers because, boy, if we're having trouble getting our cars around these streets of Halifax, those big vehicles and picking up people, they earn their money.
Indeed. Yeah, it's a tough job.
But with shopping, I'm one of those people who does look at where things are made before I buy it. If I see things that are made in China, I put it down right away.
Mm-hmm.
They have a slave economy, worse than other places.
Mm-hmm.
And I do pick up American USA, if I can find it, after Canadian choices. I do pay sometimes a little extra for that, but you can go to a place like the dollar store and you can get things from Egypt and Greece and all kinds of other places. So you can make choices of what you are supporting.
So you do. Would you agree though, Blair, that I suppose you can't speak for other people, but do you think you're in the minority? Is my question? Do you think most people price is king?
I'm sure I'm in the minority because they keep refilling the cheap shelves quicker than the more expensive shelves. Yeah. So I'm sure I'm in the minority. But if people wanted to, they could find alternatives to buying just the cheap from places they don't support. If America brings in their buy only America thing, I'll probably still buy American things because I'm sure there's going to be some seepage across the border no matter what Mr. Trump thinks about cutting us off. It's just not possible because we have something they need, and that's water and fuel.
Okay, pal. Thanks, Blair. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Take care. 902-405-6000. So there you go. There's somebody who looks at what he's buying and purchasing and plays a factor into his decisions. I would say that for most of you out there, that's not the case. And again, I'm responding to a CTV story I read this morning. A majority of Canadians would be hesitant to buy U.S. goods in response to the proposed American tariff on products from Canada, according to a survey from Nanos Research, suggesting that 2/3 of Canadians negatively or rather would consider purchasing U.S. or not products because of this tariff. And I expanded the question out to say, do you consider or care where something's made when buying, or do you look at the price and that's it, bottom line, done? And I would say, if people are being honest, most of you out there, and I don't blame you, by the way, it's cost is king. 902-405-6000. Dave, hello.
Yes, good morning, Todd. I think you're right. I think cost is king. I mean, you look at the Black Fridays and the Cyber Mondays, people don't care, where these products are made, and mostly made in China. Let's face it, most of this junk, I call it, is made in China, and some of the stuff is very good. And there's no way we can make that stuff here for labor costs that they're paying and what have you. But I wanted to touch on the Syria thing. Has anybody brought that up?
I'm going to actually be talking about it tomorrow. It's a huge story. I'm going to get into it tomorrow with Gar Party, who's a former diplomat. But yes, what do you want to say about it, Dave?
It's just mind-boggling how it seemed like over the weekend, Todd, that is it that Damascus fell, to the rebels, and in Syria.
Aleppo, of course, was the big city that fell.
Yeah, but they're now ousted Assad. So
Assad's gone. I heard that he's gone. That Russia is offered him amnesty, from what I've heard.
I believe he's there.
He's there,
his family. So, I mean, I have a couple Syrian people that I know, and I just don't know exactly how to take it all. I mean, the rebels are not exactly saints, I don't believe, but so far so good. So that's an amazing shift in the Middle East. And if you're talking about that tomorrow, that's great. But when it comes to products, like you said, I think people are looking for the cheapest. But it's a crazy world if you think of it. People are spending, I don't know how much on a Taylor Swift concert, anywhere from $1,200. I'm sure maybe the cheapest might be a little bit more, like in Vancouver.
Yeah.
When she wrapped it. Where do these folks get their money? You know, and if times are tough, where are you spending your money? I would say entertainment myself would be one of the first things that would be cut back on. But maybe things aren't that tough out there, you know, to be able to go and some people travel great distances to go see her entertain.
Yeah.
And there must be some philosophy with the owners when it comes to the Mets. I mean, you saw that with Rogers in New York with the Jets. I mean, what a disaster that's been. And they spent a fortune on Rogers. You know, there must be something there as far as writing off a team, as far as tax, bringing in fannies to fill the seats to be entertained.
Yep. Jerseys and all of that. You're right, Dave. I mean, there are people who are working for the New York Mets who would know a lot more about this than we do. But to your question, how are people paying for things? I have no idea how people. I would think that if you were to look at the amount of debt that was incurred by people to support Taylor Swift concerts, it would be a staggering amount of debt.
It's unbelievable. And I think when times get tough, maybe they tend to want to go and lose themselves for a few hours, wherever they may be. That happened during the Depression with ball games and what have you, when things were really tough. But I can't figure that out. But and you know, I think that's if people have the money to do that. But we're living in strange times, my friends. So, but yes, I'll be looking forward to hearing what you have to say about the Syria situation. That's a big shift in the Middle East, a big shift.
Yeah, huge.
And hopefully a positive shift. I can't see. Can it get any worse? Assad was really bad. But, we shall see.
Okay.
It's very interesting times. Thanks, Todd, for
Thanks,
taking
pal.
my call. Cheers.
All right, take care. 902-405-6000. The challenge is what replaces Assad and the Assad regime. And that's the challenge. And is the expectation things are going to improve? I'm not convinced that they will, because the instability that is in Syria has been there for a very, very long time. And will this mean some stabilization of that region? I wouldn't hold your breath. 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us. Again, 902-405-6000. We'll continue with your calls when we come back. All right, continuing with your calls, 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. Rafe has given us a call. Hello, Rafe.
How are you doing today?
Well, you?
Good, very well. I just wanted to call. I'm kind of in the minority myself. I always check labels, especially with clothing and food. China is definitely one that, if I see China, I'm like that other fellow. I just goes back on the show. It's as a consumer, that's really the only power you have is to purchase what you politically or for whatever reason, and that's how I do things. And with the United States doing the America First, if he starts slapping tariffs on things, I might consider boycotting American-made products. And I'll certainly pay a little more if it's local. Absolutely.
Yeah.
If I'm going to be supporting somebody that could be living, the next little neighborhood over, that the money stays in Halifax and they employ people here, and as opposed to, supporting some conglomerate like Walmart or, all that money just goes back to the States. I mean, they do employ people, but I would definitely. That's kind of my philosophy.
Yeah, and I respect that, Rafe. But again, I just think that for the majority of people, it's cost is king, and for many families, that's the only way they can survive is to purchase.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm lucky that I'm able to do that. I'm fairly secure financially.
Yeah.
And, I feel privileged to be able to do that. But it's the only real power a consumer has, and it's the same with entertainment. They talk about these sports and people making hundreds of millions of dollars and Taylor Swift making billions. If people weren't willing to pay $400 to go see her, if only 20 people showed up, well, guess what? She'd lower the price.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
But people want to see it, so more power to them. If if a product all of a sudden is not being sold at a certain price, then with a free market and a market economy, that price is going to come down.
Well, I mean, look, you could expand that rate to housing here. People I hear all the time, they see all these buildings going up, and they say, who can afford these places? Well, obviously people are, because entrepreneurs are pretty smart and they're pretty dialed in, and investors know that they're going to make the money on these buildings somehow, some way. So, and food as well, right? We all bemoan food prices, yet obviously somebody's paying it.
Yeah. So it's the power of the consumer is, is pretty powerful if it's done en masse. Like if a group said we're going to boycott whatever Chapman's ice cream, for example, for whatever reason, because it's too expensive, and people just stop buying Chapman's ice cream. I love Chapman's ice cream, but then that price is going to come down because they need to sell their product. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
One more thing before.
Yep, sure. Go ahead.
One more thing before I go is you see these things on sale, this Black Friday stuff. Like I saw one that said up to 80% off. And my philosophy is if they can sell a product at 80% off and still make a profit, then that product is being overpriced by thousands of percent.
But again, to your point, Rafe, if they're charging it and they're making and people are paying for it, then unfortunately that's capitalism, right? Unfortunately.
Yeah, that's right. That's the market.
Yeah, that's the market.
Right.
Okay, thanks for the call. Take care. 902-405-6000. Again, grocery stores, we hear about this, and we talked about it last week, and people in the exorbitant prices for groceries. But again, people are paying it. And housing's another example. I hear it all the time. All these buildings going up, and they're all over the place. Who can afford the rents? And I get it, but obviously somebody can. 902-405-6000. Carl, hello.
Hey, good morning, Todd. Welcome back, buddy.
Thank you, sir.
I still reminisce over that session you had with Iron Wheel down there at Bearley's, the old spot. Have you been to the new Bearley's yet?
No, I haven't. I've heard that there's a new Bearley's. Where is it? What's the location?
It's on Grafton Street, I believe, right near the Maxwell Plum place there.
I really like that. I really like that old venue, though. There was a good vibe to that old venue.
Absolutely. I drove right by there, and it was free.
Nice.
But anyway, and I love the outside of the new Bearley's. It looks really sharp. I think they did a good job. Anyway, the price of tickets is outrageous. I've seen just about every classic rock band you could possibly name. And when I started going to concerts when I was a young teenager, it was like $7. And we were griping when it jumped to 10 and then $12 a ticket. And anyway, I've never paid over $25 for a ticket. My question to you is this. BTO is one band that I did not get to see in person. And they're going to be playing here in Halifax. I wonder if the radio station could maybe get your hands on a few tickets and maybe award them to somebody who calls in. That would be a great show to see, and it would scratch that off my bucket list, so to speak.
What's the lineup? Who's playing in it?
BTO, and then the other.
No, I mean who's in the band now? Is it still Randy Bachman, or who's in the band?
From what I understand, Randy Bachman is in the band. Yeah. I'm not sure about anybody else. And then also April Wine is another one that's going to be there. It's three bands. I forget the third band, but I've seen April Wine many times.
Yeah, me too.
But and they're great. And but BTO, I'd sure like to see them. I did get to meet Randy Bachman briefly at the hotel where I used to work when I was a kid, and I got to hang out with him for a little bit, which was really cool. But I was like 15 years old. Anyway, well, listen, welcome back. I hope you're feeling well, and thanks for taking my call.
Okay, thanks for the call. Take care. 902-405-6000. Keith, hello.
Morning, Todd. Welcome back.
Thank you.
I just want to touch on a couple of things. The salary that's being paid out to Soto, this largest salary in sports history, I believe.
Well, it's baseball history. I'm not sure of sports history, but again, it might be sports history. But I know it's more than Shohei Ohtani was paid. So it's the highest baseball salary ever. Yes.
Okay. So I just I'm wondering, that salary, so that's guaranteed 51 mil per year for 15 years, I think it was.
Yeah, it's a 15-year contract, 700 and some odd $million a year. Yes, indeed.
So just say, for instance, if he were to be, say, preseason, playing a pickup game of basketball and blow us out his knee, would he still get paid?
I'm not sure what the rules are. If he's, I think that you have some. I don't know that. That's a good question. I don't know what you're allowed to do off season, or I'm not sure. But I think he's probably guaranteed the money. But I don't know if insurance would kick in or what the deal is. I can't answer that, Keith. But to your point, there's a lot of risk there because he could blow out his knee playing the outfield or whatever. Right? Players get injured. We know that, and that's a lot of money on the line. And it's a lot of risk to the franchise because they're stuck paying that. I don't know the ins and outs of what liability there is if he hurts himself off season. I don't know, but it's a good point.
The other thing I just wanted to just touch on just for briefly was a question of how people can afford to buy tickets. Say now, Taylor Swift tickets. Like she just came off that Eras tour and she made, according to her camp, she made like $2 billion.
Well, that's how much the tour grossed. So that wasn't net. That was expenses. But safe to say that she would have pocketed hundreds of millions of dollars, likely, I would think.
So my question was that how do people afford that? Well, I don't know if you're grocery shopping and you're in the lineup and you just have to notice sometimes not credit cards or people pay for groceries on credit cards. And, credit cards, they like that. Credit companies like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And, I'm thinking a lot of people probably buy all these tickets and whatnot on their credit card, and then they worry about it or they don't worry about it at the end of the month. But, things pile up, right? So I think a lot of people are probably in a lot of credit debt. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I sure do. I don't know what percent of debt there would have paid for those tickets to see Taylor Swift, but I think it'd be alarming if we could unpackage that. But I will say a lot of people do use their credit cards just to get points, and they pay off the balance every year. So I don't know that would be reflective that everybody who's using a credit card isn't paying it off every month. But that said, I'm sure that many, Keith, unfortunately, are in that position using credit cards to get by, and eventually that we know what happens there. That you can only pull that off for so long, unfortunately.
Yeah. Okay, Todd. Thank you.
Okay, pal. Take care. 902-405-6000. Aaron, hello.
Hey, Todd. How are you today?
Well, you?
I'm good. Just calling in about the Syria thing. I'm just wondering how the Americans, British, and French, along with a bunch of other countries, could justify teaming up with Al Qaeda and ISIS in order to topple the Syrian government for their geopolitical interests. It blurs the lines between just regular terrorists and state terrorism, not even to mention the genocide that these countries are supporting in Israel. And I'm wondering, who are the bad guys here, and there are no good guys as far as I can see this. Now, the Ukrainians went in, they were training these guys, the ISIS and Al Qaeda affiliates or whatever they are. They used Ukrainian drones to start this battle off. Mm-hmm. They have Ukrainian uniforms, weapons. And I'm like, this is as obvious as anything. And I'm wondering, how is the media going to spin this? And what do the Americans and British and French who've experienced serious terrorist attacks on their soil, what are they going to think about their governments teaming up with these people just in order to weaken Russia and Iran? I don't get this. But I know tomorrow you have someone.
Yeah, Gar Party's on, who's has intimate knowledge of this whole thing. He's going to be on the show to kick off or 10:15, I believe he's on the show. So I'm going to ask him a lot of. But Aaron, this isn't the first time that the United States and other countries have backed people and who have turned out to be their bitter enemy, the Taliban in Afghanistan, for example, right?
I understand. The funny part is that as soon as they help these people, the Israelis and Americans went in and bombed ISIS right after the fact. So this is just dirty, all around just dirty, and I just, this is the way that things really happen in the world. And I just hope it doesn't get swept under the rug and the media spins it out in the wash of all the other news, because people should be aware of what actually went down here and how bad it's going to get with these crazy factions in a balkanized Syria. It's how bad it's going to get.
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot worse.
Well, yeah, the vacuum of leadership. I think that people, if they're thinking that Assad's gone, so there's going to be some era of whatever replacing it, I think that's naive at best to think that's going to happen.
It's Al-Qaeda in there, and I'm wondering, what about all the chemical weapons that America accused Syria of having? Are they still there? Do these people have them in their possession? How about the ballistic missiles? With Turkey being right there on the border, that's the doorstep to Europe. Are we going to see some of these chemical weapons end up in Europe?
Yeah.
This is a mess.
Yeah, it
so
sure
I'll
is.
Be looking forward to what the guy has to say tomorrow. But thanks for getting him on there and talking about it.
Okay, all right, take care. Good points. 902-405-6000. Give us a call, folks. We've got some time for you to top of the hour. Get some open lines as well. 902-405-6000. We'll continue with your calls when we come back. All right, I want to take the time and read this email from Eric quickly, and then I'll go back to the phones. Give us a call, 902-405-6000. Says, here's a simple indicator of disparity of today's concert pricing hysteria. Concerts for top acts coming to Halifax in the late 70s, a ticket cost approximately 3 to 4 times minimum wage. For example, seeing bands such as April Wine Supertramp tickets were $8 to $10. Minimum wage was $2.50 an hour, ratio 3 to 4. Present day top acts getting $1,000+ minimum, $1,000+ minimum wage is approximately $15 an hour. That leaves a ratio of 60 to 70, often 100 to 200 times. A simple but very telling indicator of the times we now live in, and that's well said. I think that is well said. Ratio 3 to 4. The ratio now is 60, 70, often 100 to 200 times. Interesting. 902-405-6000. Tanya's giving us a call. Hello, Tanya.
Hi there. Just calling about this Taylor Swift issue. I just want to say that if people want to spend all this money on those tickets, flights, hotels, accommodations, let them do it. If they can't pay now, they're going to pay later. I think some families did that. It's a beautiful time. It's just a beautiful time that some families spent together. A lot of people made friendships. Taylor Swift is well known for being extremely generous in every city she goes to. Food banks benefit. She's been great to her crew, truck drivers. I just want to say that if people want to do this and go see Taylor and make beautiful memories, people buy houses they can't afford all the time, vacations they can't afford, cars they can't afford. So be it. Life's been hard the past 4 years, just shake it off.
Well, I get it. I don't know that throwing caution to the wind financially and saying I want to have a good time, so I'm gonna mortgage the bank on a concert. I don't know if that's a good idea, but I
wouldn't go that far.
To each their own, I suppose. But if I were, and this isn't a slam against Taylor Swift. It's irrelevant who it is. It's not about it being her. But people have spent thousands and tens of thousands of dollars to take their daughter or two daughters to Toronto or Vancouver. And when you factor in the flights and the accommodation and all of it, we're talking massive dollars here. And I don't know that that's just throwing caution to the wind. Just to have a good time is good advice. But to each their own, I suppose.
Maybe it's not. Yeah, to each their own. I wouldn't do it. I have a little more sense than that, I think.
Yeah.
But, it's been so hard these last 4 years. If people just want to, I don't know. There's no answer if you, to each his own, like you said.
Okay. All right, Tanya. Thanks for the call.
Okay.
Take care. All right. And look, you could say that you could spend all that money. If you're going to spend that type of money, what are your priorities? Well, there are lots of local charities that could use a small percentage of that. Right? So again, I'm not dissuading anybody or criticizing anybody who went to the show or goes to shows or whatever. But at some point, you have to look at the costs and you have to ask the question, is it worth it? And for some, it was. Rick, what's your take on all this?
Well, if it was real, I guess it'd be all right. But half of Taylor Swift's concert, she's lip-syncing. And this has been proven time and time again using pitch monitoring software by a guy in Britain called Phil on Wings of Pegasus' YouTube site. And there's no denying it. She sings sometimes when she's playing the piano or acoustic guitar. She's actually singing live. But when the band is playing, she's not. And all you have to do is go look at it. I mean, you're a musician, you know.
Yeah.
You know that in any type of production, a big production, the bigger it is, the more can go wrong. The technical people will try to eliminate as many variables as they can. So eliminating the actual singer from singing, because Taylor Swift runs around and sort of dances, I guess. I just saw clips over it, but she has like 10 songwriters working with her. So it's kind of a weird thing that she's so popular. But anyway, he took a lot of heat from the Swifties, but he backed them all down, man. They had no case. Pitch monitoring software is accurate to the 100th of a note, 1% of a note. So when you're going to see Taylor Swift, you're getting half whatever percentage she does acoustic piano, and that's all she's singing. The rest of it, it's just a band track with just like listening to the record. You could stay home and hear the same thing and dance yourself, I guess. But there's no doubt about it. And you know that I know the difference. So.
Well, Rick, I would say that you're probably not their target demographic, nor am I.
No, but the people that are going to the concerts don't know that it's fake.
Well, I don't think they care, quite honestly. They're there for the experience, right? I would say.
Yeah, well, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
But this conversation was about the price.
Yeah.
So, give you an example. I could do a Taylor Swift clone act, where I just sit in a chair and mouth the words to the big production. I mean, nobody would come see that. But nevertheless, it would be as accurate as what they're doing live. That's how she can sing all those shows in a row.
Yeah.
That's the ticket. People's voices give out eventually with that kind of
Well, the Beatles used to play every night for 5 hours a night in Germany or whatever it was, and they were able to do it, right? So.
Oh, look, I've done 27 nights in a row, 28 nights in a row.
Well, exactly.
I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm just saying that at that level, where nobody was paying $1,000 to see me.
All right, Rick, go learn your Taylor Swift repertoire. Get it going.
You got it right on, buddy. Bye-bye.
All right, take care. Thanks for the calls, everybody. We appreciate it very much. Again, I'm glad that the tour's over, because quite in all seriousness, I'm tired of hearing about Taylor Swift. I've had enough. But at the end of the day, if that's my biggest issue, then whatever. I have no issues with Taylor Swift. Zero. I'm not a fan, but so be it. She's obviously done amazingly well, and I think all factors, if all things are at play, she'll continue to do so. The Public Service Alliance of Canada launched a national pension campaign to urge the government to respect workers and keep its hands off pensions. We'll discuss this when we come back. All right, this release, the Public Service Alliance of Canada launched a national pension campaign to urge the Trudeau government to respect workers and keep its hands off pensions. The Liberal government's plan to raid, again reading the release, $9.3 billion from the federal public service pension surplus, is a betrayal of Canada's public service workers and sets the stage for other attacks on the pension security of millions of workers in Canada. Joining us to talk about all of this is Chris Liberatore, with the Atlantic Region, PSAC Atlantic Region Executive Vice President. Chris, thanks for joining the show. We appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me, Todd.
All right, so this is something that I think would, to me anyway, has flown under the radar. I've not seen a lot about this. What can you tell us about the Liberal government's plan here? What has occurred to this point?
So what has occurred to this point is that the Liberal government has taken $1.9 billion from the pension surplus of the Public Service Superannuation Plan and moved it into the Consolidated Revenue Fund. So put it into their general revenues. And they also plan to suspend their own contributions to the Public Service Pension Plan to recuperate another $7.4 billion. And this is a plan that workers contribute to equally. It's a 50-50 contribution to this plan. Mm-hmm. So we believe this sends the wrong message, and we believe that this is going to set up right across the country a stampede of employers trying to follow suit, pocketing money that was set aside for retirement security for hardworking Canadians.
Okay, so what's the justification for this? What are they saying? Why are they doing this?
Well, there is a legislative requirement that when the pension hits a certain percentage of surplus, that they do have to address that surplus. But this doesn't mean that they have to be the sole beneficiary of however it is that they address that surplus.
Okay, what would a better alternative be in your opinion?
Well, there's a couple of different alternatives, really. Back in 2012, the Harper government introduced an unfair two-tier pension system where employees who started on January 1, 2013 had to work 5 years longer than those that were working before that. So without any cost to taxpayers, they could reverse that change and bring pension equity back to workers in the public service. They could also follow through on their promise for 25 and out for frontline workers, emergency workers, and they could, at the same time, instead of being the sole beneficiary and reducing their own contributions, they could reduce the contributions of workers, which would benefit some of the lowest paid workers in government and give them a little bit of relief in this time of economic or affordability crisis.
Okay, I guess the good news is that the pension's obviously done quite well to garner a surplus of almost $10 billion.
That's correct. It's a defined benefit pension plan that's invested in the markets, and with the way the markets have been over the last number of years, it has done very well. And like I say, the contributions of the workers have assisted in making sure that the funds are there to invest appropriately to make those gains.
Yeah, so under legislation, you're saying that they have the right to take all of that surplus out. Is that correct?
That's what the legislation requires, that the government address this surplus, and they can take that surplus. They've done it before under Paul Martin, mm-hmm. and it wasn't right then. It's not right now.
Okay, I guess some might say if in fact they raid the surplus and they bring it down and then end up in deficit of some type, it'll ultimately fall upon the federal government to fill in any because, as you mentioned, it's a defined benefit plan. So where's the risk, I guess, to those who are going to be the recipients of a defined benefit plan?
So when you look at it this way, Todd, when folks are contributing and there's a surplus, the government, they take that surplus, they do what they want. And there is a liability issue when it's underfunded that the government needs to make that up. But what they usually may wind up doing, I shouldn't say usually, but what they may wind up doing if there was a deficit is then increasing the contribution rate of the workers to make up for that shortfall. So the workers pay for it when there's a deficit, and the government reaps the benefit when there's a surplus.
Yeah. Oh, it's interesting. So there's concern here that this could spill over into other pension plans. Is that correct?
Well, it sends a really bad message. If the government can do this, what's stopping other employers out there from doing the same thing when their plans get into a similar situation of being in a surplus situation? Because again, the legislation is not just specific to the government. It could impact private pensions as well.
Okay, so what's the response been from the government on this so far? Have you received a response?
They have not consulted with us at all on this. Quite honestly, they just moved it. They say they're going to consult with us down the road. We'll see whether or not that happens. But if we look at things that have happened in recent past, they said they would consult with us when it came to telework. They said they would consult with us when it came to potential cuts in the public service, and we've seen nothing. Phoenix.
Yeah, I was going to mention the Phoenix pay system. I mean, that's a complete debacle. Where are we with that?
That's still not fixed, and it's probably going to be another 7 years before it is. I mean, they're introducing a new pay system, and they're trying to test it now. But again, this has been done without any kind of consultation with some of the public service workers who actually do this kind of work in creating software for the pay system. I mean, it was public service workers who ran the pay system prior to Phoenix. We didn't have these issues then. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was antiquated. Yeah, it needed a replacement. Should have been done in-house. Contracting out winds up costing Canadians more and more all the time. And Phoenix is just one example. What should have cost a couple of $1 million is now in the billions because we contracted it out and didn't rely on the people with the expertise.
And some of the horror stories that you hear, people not getting paid or people who have been overpaid or whatever it might be, it's. I'm sure that you've heard it all, right?
That still continues today, and we know folks have lost their homes, they've lost their vehicles, and when they've tried to pay it back, when they've been overpaid, they've been told, no, just hang on to it. It hasn't shown up in our system yet. We can't take your payment yet. Wow.
And of course, that's difficult to do. I mean, when you got a household budget and you got money there, the temptation is to use it, obviously, right?
That is a reality.
Yeah, for sure. With no end in sight with this Phoenix pay system.
Like I say, it's going to be at least 7 years.
Yeah. When it comes to the public sentiment and some of these issues, do you feel as though that your members and federal workers often don't get a fair ride in the public eye with all of this stuff?
I would have to agree with that, Todd. I mean, for many, many years, successive governments have taken opportunities to somewhat vilify the public service because we're an easy target. When folks are out there, they've created this fallacy that we're overpaid, that we've got too many benefits. We've negotiated some really great things for our members, and we'd love to see Canadians as a whole have those same members or those same benefits. At the end of the day, that's what we would want for everybody, what we're negotiating for our members. By doing this, the government, again, they continue to put a target on our back, and when they need to find some way to be popular, I guess, they see us as an easy target.
All right, so what's the next step here with this? What's the next action item for you guys?
Well, we're going to continue to lobby and talk to our members of Parliament, and we're going to continue to spread the message, let folks in Canada know what's happening, and let them know that all we're looking for is fairness. We just want things to be fair. If we've contributed 50% to this particular surplus, then we should be, benefiting equally with the government.
Okay, Chris, appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks, Todd.
All right, take care, Chris. Liberatore, Public Service Alliance of Canada's Atlantic Regional Executive Vice President. I just received an email, and I'll read it quickly in response to this. And Glenn says this, said, the federal government contributes 50%, the employees contribute 50%. That is a ridiculous generous plan when almost all private sector plans, if you're lucky enough to have one, is 33% company, 66% employee. I suggest the federal governments don't whine too much about their extremely generous pension plan. So again, two sides to this. But look, an agreement is an agreement. And whether you like it or not, I get his point. If you're a member of this union and there's a surplus there and you're seeing it whittle down, the concern might be, okay, how far do you take that down? And we know that the markets have been very strong and pensions have benefited from that, pension plans. But what if this thing goes into deficit? What then? And I could see a concern there. I get it, but I take everybody else's point as well who aren't the beneficiary of this plan, of this type of pension plan, defined benefit pension plan. Most people in the private sector, if not, I don't know anybody in the private sector who's got a defined pension benefit plan anymore. It's a defined contribution plan, and there's a big difference. Anyway, interesting chat nonetheless. Corrections officers rally for better wages, safer working conditions. We'll talk about this when we come back. All right, this release from the NSGEU. The corrections officers have one of the most dangerous jobs in the civil service, yet are the lowest paid in the country. They're asking for help. Joining us to talk about all of this is Sandra Mullen, NSGEU President. Sandra, thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Todd.
All right, so what are we talking when it comes to wages? What is the wage scale for corrections officers?
Well, it is currently the issue is that they are $4 less an hour than our folks who work in sheriff's work. And I think if members would remember, our corrections officers held a rally in the spring of last year. At that time, they were $2 less than the sheriff. For processes that are in place and grievances that were filed to look at job descriptions. Of course, we represent the folks who work as sheriffs as well. So government ended up that these sheriffs were reclassified kind of thing and paid more. Our members now see that across the country in unionized workforces here as corrections, they are paid the lowest in the country. They, back in the spring, the shortages, and this is to no one's surprise, we have been talking about shortages at corrections for so many years and months. These folks are working so short-staffed. We are doing our part to work with justice to ensure that we are doing what we can to train new folks, but they're just not staying because the pay is better in other positions. So they're coming into government perhaps as a corrections officer and taking the door as soon as they see something that's better. And currently our folks in sheriff services are paid $4 an hour more.
Okay, again, what is the wage scale, if you don't mind saying that?
I don't have that exact wage per hour in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
I can... No, I don't have it in front of me. We have tried numerous times, and we are working with the senior staff. We have been, since March, through 2 ministers of justice. We have done our part in looking at the job description and putting in that paperwork. Premier has, recently a snap election, which stops everything. And now we're calling on him to appoint a minister of justice who will take a look at this and correct this deficiency. These folks do a lot more than be as noted in the press, a jail guard. They have to work with these inmates to rehabilitate them and to work with them. They're facing these folks who have far greater needs inside, and so it's very stressful work, very hard on our members. Working short staff has an impact on the members who are there, and then to see that they are lowest paid in the country doesn't promote folks to go into corrections as a job, as a career. It used to be a career. We've had many of folks who were in there and worked as corrections officers for many, many years, but it's taken its toll. And like I say, since March, we've been through 2 ministers of justice. We need someone who will come in and take a look at this and fix the problem. We need to ensure these folks are paid for the work that they're doing, to keep them safe and to keep our members safe, so that folks who do get released can do so, in a safe manner for everyone.
All right. So, what's the concern? How bad could this be when it comes to losing people?
Well, they're spending money to train folks. Mm-hmm. We're offering them space. They're using our space at our office to put on training groups of 15 to 20. But these folks who do graduate and get a job inside are taking the first job to go out because the pay is better for, what would be considered a less stressful position. You know, our sheriffs don't spend their 12-hour shift with an inmate. You know, just the way that it is. They are in a safer work environment. Our correctional officers are in there in the, you know, living with these folks 24 hours a day. Hopefully they're not working 24 hours, but with such short staffing that does exist, these folks are working lots of overtime. And so they spend all this time with the inmates, but they need to be able to do more with these folks in rehabilitation and education and getting these folks ready to be released safely back into the communities.
All right. And again, you don't know what the response has been because, as you mentioned, we have a new government. So you're calling upon the premier to appoint a justice minister who will take this seriously. What level of confidence do you have, or not, that that'll be the case?
Well, you know, we have been trying our best to work with the senior team at Justice. And I believe we are all looking forward to a minister who will be able to come in and address it as it should be. But, you know, our members have reached that breaking point where they're back at the rally stage at the office, Minister of Justice or Department of Justice as it is, with no minister as yet. And, you know, they're trying to force the issue to say, look at our job and the seriousness of it. And, you know, there have been a couple of deputy changes as well. So we know that the Premier has to pick a new minister, and we're looking to have a meeting with that new minister as soon as possible and to show all the work that we have done and the information we have. These folks should not be paid less than the sheriffs, and they should not be certainly the lowest paid in the country.
Yeah, and again, how do you expect to retain people? I mean, it's pretty evident. The working conditions are very difficult. Some people have a passion for this type of work, and I get that, but that'll only go so far.
It certainly does. And when there are safer, less stressful jobs out there at better pay, it doesn't take too long to consider, I'm going to move. But again, there is a cost to government to put on these training programs, to train folks for whether it's a 3-month or 6-month process to get folks into the facilities. And we're all in support of doing some training, but that's a cost. And so let's retain the ones that we have, and let's make it more of an attractive career for folks to join. How effective do you think the rally was? I think it showed the fact that our folks were not fearful of rain and wind, and they got the attention of media, and let's hope that the Premier was watching and that he puts a Minister of Justice who will give them some airtime.
Sandra, appreciate your time as always. Thanks so much.
Great. Take care now.
All right, take care. Sandra Mullen, NSGEU President. And again, look, if you're a corrections officer, and these are very difficult working conditions, and I get that some people have a passion for this type of work, and good that they do. But that only goes so far. I mean, you're working shift work, you're working difficult conditions, working extra overtime. The demands are great, the stress is great, and you can go to the sheriff's department, work much better hours for $4 more an hour. Well, yeah, that's going to obviously entice a lot of people to leave corrections, and it's a lot of people with a lot of experience, and you have to retrain people, and all of that stuff. All the cost that goes with the rotating workforce. So I think that Sandra's making some pretty good points. A new national study says Nova Scotia's leadership position in energy efficiency has been overtaken by other provinces, including our closest neighbours. We'll discuss this when we come back.
Thanks.
A national study says Nova Scotia's leadership position in energy efficiency has been overtaken by other provinces, including its closest neighbour. The Canadian Energy Efficiency Scorecard has the East Coast province tumbling from second place in 2022 to fifth this year. PEI now tied with Quebec for second place. New Brunswick has moved ahead to fourth spot. Joining us to talk about all of this is James Gaede, Director of Research and co-author of the Scorecard report. James, thanks for joining the show. We appreciate your time.
Hi, Todd. Thanks for having me.
All right. So tell us what are the factors at play here? How is this determined?
Well, so you kind of hit the nail on the head there. Nova Scotia has been a traditional strong performer in our scorecard report, which we've done every year since 2019, except for last year, I should say. And this year, the province just slipped a little bit, and it's mostly due to competition from neighboring provinces like Prince Edward Island and New Brunswick.
Okay. Well, again, what are the metrics, or what was the methodology that goes into this?
Oh, sure. So there's so this is quite a bit to unpack, but I'll try to be as quick as possible.
Sure.
So the scorecard looks at over 40 different energy efficiency policy indicators across 5 different policy areas. Those areas are energy efficiency programs, enabling policies that help utilities to achieve energy efficiency savings, buildings-related energy efficiency policy, transportation-related energy efficiency policy, and finally, industry-related energy efficiency policy. So Nova Scotia's performance in the program section is typically quite strong. Over the past 5 years, they've typically placed first or second in this section, particularly on achieving electricity savings. And this year, again, Nova Scotia was a strong performer, but Ontario just eked out a little bit ahead of them. And then some other areas, in particular, where Prince Edward Island and New Brunswick have started to provide some competition for Nova Scotia is on the spending on energy efficiency programming. Mm-hmm. So here, we see Nova Scotia is a relatively strong performer in terms of spending on energy efficiency programs, but this year, New Brunswick and Prince Edward Island eked out a little bit ahead of them, largely due to spending on their programs to get people off heating oil using heat pumps.
Okay, building codes. This is something that you look at as well, and requirements. What can you tell us about building codes?
Yeah, sure. So building codes is another it's a metric in the building section of the scorecard. One of the things that we look for is have provinces adopted the latest version of the national model codes, and if they have, what level of efficiency requirements have they adopted from those codes? Those codes have multiple different tiers of efficiency requirements. So here, Nova Scotia has yet to fully adopt the 2020 national model codes, although they did recently announce in September that they would be doing so next year. Unfortunately, that falls just outside of the window that we look at in the scorecard. So that wouldn't have been captured, but in future scorecards, we expect to see Nova Scotia do a little bit better in this section. Another thing we look for is, has the province set a target date to reach the top level of energy efficiency requirements in the building codes? So buildings built at the top level of efficiency requirements are essentially what we call net zero energy ready, which is to say they're so efficient that they could, in theory, provide all their energy that they would require themselves. So here we haven't seen a commitment from Nova Scotia. We haven't heard of a commitment date, but in Prince Edward Island we have. I believe it's 2030. Prince Edward Island's committed to reaching the top tier of the building code. And then a third thing that we look at is, has the province released a schedule to move up the tiers toward that highest tier? And here, Nova Scotia, in its most recent announcement, has given some indication that it's going to be moving up the tiers in the coming years. And we would just look to see those, that they're maintained and that the province follows through on its plans.
All right, spending on programs. This is something that you talked about. It's a key metric, and delivering for the money invested, I think, is something that we need to perhaps look at, because you can throw all kinds of money at a program, but if it's not delivering, then we need to analyze that and be cognizant of that. What are your thoughts on how money is spent and realizing gains from that investment?
What I would say is that Nova Scotia is, according to the data that we've collected, an effective spends effectively on energy efficiency programs. and achieves the savings that you would expect to come from that level of spending. I think moving forward, the province is facing slightly different challenges. So, as I mentioned earlier, Nova Scotia has done quite well on achieving electricity savings and savings of non-regulated fuels like heating oil. But moving forward, it's going to be really important for the province to to develop and then implement programs to achieve what we call capacity savings, which is slightly different than energy savings. So energy savings, you're reducing how much energy you consume. A capacity savings is basically kind of a grid level metric that looks at how much the peak demand has been reduced. So as Nova Scotia looks to decarbonize its electricity systems and bring on more wind and solar power, it's going to be really important that the province maximize the amount of flexibility that it can get from demand-side programs to achieve those kinds of capacity savings.
Okay, the Energy Reform Act. This is something that I guess, although there's concern here from the when it comes to the ranking, there's still some good news here, I guess, for the province.
Oh, I would say that there's lots of good news for the province, and I really do want to just go back to that kind of main point, and that's that Nova Scotia continues to be a pretty good performer in the scorecard. It's just that it's facing competition from other provinces. And like I said, the game is changing a little bit, so the province might need to redirect its attention slightly. But you mentioned the 2024 Energy Reform Act. So, it might be a little bit early for me to say personally what the implications of this will be for the province's performance in future scorecards. What we see is it's promising that there could be a clearer mandate for a regulatory board and the development of a system operator. But what we would really like to see is just a stronger and clearer mandate to prioritize energy efficiency and demand-side resources to achieve those capacity savings in that process. So, one of the things that we look for is what's called an energy efficiency resource standard, which is essentially a way for a government or a province, rather, to set a target to achieve certain levels of demand-side resources. And that's not something that we see in the material that's been released so far around the 2024 Energy Reform Act. And we'll be keeping a close eye on seeing how things play out as they continue to develop.
Do you think there's sufficient buy-in when it comes to the public at large when it comes to transition and these issues?
Yeah, this is something that's just hard for me to say, Todd. It's a little bit outside of my wheelhouse with the scorecard report. So unfortunately, I don't know that I can really speak authoritatively.
Well, no, but you can speculate. You can speculate anecdotally what your thoughts are.
I'd love to speculate anecdotally, but I just don't know enough people to say really. Yeah. I would say, the people that I know, the things that I see, the trends that we see in the scorecard, I think are indicative of growing and general consensus among the public that it's important to do things to improve how we use and consume energy, and I think those are the trends that we're likely to see continue on into the future.
Okay, good stuff. Thanks. Appreciate your time, James.
Yeah, no problem, Todd.
All right, take care. James Gaede, co-author of the Scorecard report in which we were talking about. Clinton Wilkins, when we come back.
When you need to know.
The Todd Veinotte Show on 95.7 News Radio Halifax.
All right, joining us for a chat, Clinton Wilkins, our mortgage guru. Clinton Wilkins, it's been a while, my friend. How are you?
Good. How are you, Todd? Welcome back.
Thank you so much. I'm doing all right. I'm hanging in there. It's great to chat with you again. We have a Bank of Canada decision or rate decision coming up on Wednesday, I do believe. Is that correct?
That's right. Wednesday is the big day, December 11th. A lot of economists have been projecting that we're going to see another decrease. I'm on side with them. But there's two schools of thought. Some think that we're going to see a 25 basis point decrease, and some think that we're going to see another jumbo decrease of 50 basis points. So I expect our listeners will be very keen to hear the announcement here on Wednesday. I know I am, for sure.
I'll bet you are. I'll bet, and all your clients are as well. I saw this story on the Global News website. Canadian real estate watchers are expecting home prices and housing activity to rise in 2025 after what they call a recovery year. But the Bank of Canada's policy rate will still have sway over how quickly buyers come back. Here's the rub with all of this, Clinton, and you live with this day to day, that people are saying, well, I'm going to wait till rates bottom out, but in the meantime, competition for housing and prices for housing goes up when rates are dropping. So if you wait around too long, you're not gaining. This is the balancing act, right, that you deal with every day, I'm sure.
It's definitely a balancing act, and I can tell you we're seeing that this year. It was very, very busy for us, and I would say was almost one of our best years ever. And I would assume consumers would think that it was maybe 2020 or 2021 when there was just so much activity in the market. But the interesting thing is, the clients that we had that were willing to proceed, at higher interest rates, were actually getting accepted offers. And although we didn't see the price decrease here like they did in Ontario and BC, things have really been more level here in Halifax, which I think is much more healthy. It's more healthy for sellers and it's more healthy for buyers. But I think my concern really is once we continue to see the rates go down even more, there are going to be people that go back into the marketplace that weren't in the market before, and it's going to really increase the demand. We certainly do have a lot of demand here in Halifax already, but there is some pent-up demand for people that have been waiting on the sidelines. The one thing that I always say is you're only dating the interest rate, but you're really marrying the home. So that's the one thing that we need to remember. The purchase price of the home, that's not changing once you own it, but rates change from term to term.
Yeah, and again, I think this is a good lesson for people who, when rates were hitting their peak here, who had variable mortgages, who pulled the pin on it, and now they might be looking at it and saying, I should have held on to my variable mortgage.
I can tell you, certainly a lot of customers are wanting to go back into a variable right now, and especially the new mortgages that we're doing, very, very popular, especially with the rate decreases. They've decreased even more than you and I projected when we started, Mortgage 101 at the beginning of this year. I was, estimating that we're going to see, 100 basis point decrease, but we're already now at 125, and maybe it'll be 150 or 175 here before the end of the year. So it certainly decreased more and quicker than we thought. But that was really driven by what's going on with inflation and really the GDP and the job numbers here. The one thing that I'm really watching is what's going on in the U.S. Obviously, that can have some impact. Again, it's not a one-to-one impact on what's going on in the U.S., so don't get me wrong. But what's going on in the bond market and, some of the policy that may come out of the U.S. can certainly impact us here in Canada.
What has a bigger impact from a psychological level on a purchaser? Is it the price or the rate or both?
I think it's both, but I think from a consumer perspective, I think we're just so kind of numb to the price. We're like, okay, prices are going up across the board on everything. I think we're numb to maybe purchase prices of real estate, especially since 2020. I mean, we've seen 5 years of really healthy price growth here in Halifax. I think people get the sticker shock with the rate because obviously the rate is impacting the payment. And I think sometimes consumers are more worried about that payment that's coming out of their bank account every day compared to the actual purchase price. I'm not sure anyone actually remembers the interest rate. I've been doing this for almost 20 years. I'm in 19 years. It'll be 20 years next year. And I bet if we surveyed all the customers that we did mortgages for even 3 and 5 years ago, they wouldn't remember the exact interest rate that they had.
I'll bet. Another story of interest that I sent along to you, I want to get your take on it. This off the CTV website. This is a new report looking into home ownership affordability reveals an unsettling picture on how far out of reach owning a home is becoming in Canada. The survey from Leger shows 67% of Canadians can't comfortably afford their monthly housing costs above about $1,700 per month. So again, you're living this every day as well. I'm sure you get calls on a daily basis and emails from people every day. What's your kind of takeaway on this story?
I agree with it. I think that the housing cost has increased faster than, wages have paced. That has been, impact of interest rates and, rental costs and purchase price and inflation across the board. The one interesting thing that I saw There was an article on All Nova Scotia here, I think last week, and one of the major landlords in Halifax has said the demand for apartments is starting to decrease. That's the first time that I've seen anything around a decrease in demand. And they said that the average price for a two-bedroom apartment now in Halifax has gone down, and it's just under $2,500 a month. So I would agree with the article. I think housing certainly is more expensive, and I think the percentage of a household's monthly budget more and more has gone housing than in previous. And that's one thing that we've just had to adjust, I think, as Canadians. I think the incomes will continue to increase, but I hope that we get to a plateau type situation in the housing cost. And I think we will if we can get more and more supply on hand. That was our biggest issue here in Halifax, driving the price and the price increases even in real estate. Hasn't been enough supply to eat up the amount of demand here in our marketplace.
Another story I want to throw at you, and I know you're able to pivot, so I'm going to do this. Stats Canada says investors represented 3 in 10 residential property buyers in Nova Scotia from 2018 to 2020. That's the highest volume of such provinces where data is available. And are you seeing this? And many of these property buyers be coming in with cash, or would some of that be mortgaged, or both?
I would say 90% of buyers are getting a mortgage. You know, it doesn't matter what type of buyer it is, people are getting a mortgage. Even the people that you think are independently wealthy and they can just pay cash for everything, they're still getting a mortgage because I think that's the thing. They want to be able to write the interest off against, maybe the amount of rent that's coming in terms of.
Sure.
But the one thing I will say, I'm seeing a major slowdown in people buying second homes and rental properties due to the change in the tax scheme around capital gains. So, yes, maybe in 2020, 2021, up to midway even through this year, we saw a lot of transactions from second homes and rental properties, but that has really slowed since the changes that have come out from the federal government.
All right, so that tells me that if creating housing is the key, that's perhaps working. Your thoughts?
I think I think the change with the federal government around capital gains has slowed down these investors, and I think it's given more of an opportunity for people to buy our occupied properties.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's really positive. I think the challenge here in our market is we're just not pumping out enough real estate. There certainly is a lot of cranes in the sky, here in Halifax. So I think we're going to see more rental stock coming on. And I hope that will then maybe free up some single-family homes that will become for sale. So imagine if you're a little old lady or a little old man and you want to go into an apartment, but there's no apartments to have, you're not selling your home.
Right.
And these are the homes that typically maybe a first-time home buyer would be able to afford. Might be a fixer-upper, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very optimistic in terms of what we're going to see next year. And I'm going to go out on a limb that we're going to see at least a 5% price growth. But I think the other thing that we're going to see, especially with the rates going down, is at least a 5%, if not more, activity in the market. So I think these two things together, I really think that next year is going to be one of the busiest years in real estate here in Halifax. And I think it might even challenge the numbers that we saw, for example, in 2022.
So again, if people are just waiting for that kind of rock bottom rate in order to purchase, might not always be prudent.
I think it is actually more expensive.
Yeah.
Maybe the cost of borrowing is less, but you can't change the price of the house once you own it. So I would really challenge the people that are kind of sitting on the fence. Q1, like the first quarter, January, February, March is a great time to buy. And even in December, we're seeing a lot of transactions now, Todd. And I will say from November, we haven't had a November this busy in years. This, I think, was really a symptom of this pent-up demand. But, with these people that were on the sidelines, I think now have started to come back into the marketplace. There's a lot of positive news coming out of the Bank of Canada. I think those rates are going to continue to decrease. The one message that I want to give to our listeners is, although variable rates may continue to go down, that doesn't necessarily mean that fixed rates are going to go down. They move completely independently of each other. And if you're really watching the bond markets, if anything, we might even see fixed rates increase and the variable rates decrease. So we just need to remember that they're not tied one-to-one. And the best advice from for a mortgage really comes from a mortgage broker. All right, and of course we'll have lots to talk about in Mortgage 101 in the new year, which is always great. Yeah, it's going to be really, really good. We're going to have a great season here in 2025. It's hard to believe that we've now, I think, going on 7 years. January, we're going to talk about Mary Detmus. And, it's been a challenging year, I think, for some people, especially from an economic standpoint around inflation. And consumer debt is at an all-time high. So we're certainly going to have a focus on that in January. And we're going to have some really good conversations about, how you can handle that and really what you need to do to have a healthy and secure 2025.
Okay, looking forward to it, Clinton. Thanks so much, pal.
Thanks, Todd. Have a great holiday if we're not talking.
No, you and I will talk because I want to lock in. I know you're going away, but I want to spend some time with you so we can have some programming and have your voice heard over the holidays. So we'll be in touch.
That's great. We'll get a date on for sure, and we'll chat with you very soon.
Okay, pal. Talk soon. Take care. Clinton Wilkins, our mortgage guru. Thanks to Vanessa Vandeness on the other side of the glass at the control board. Doing a fine job as always. We're back tomorrow, 10 o'clock. See you then.